The second part of your preparation is to practice. So now you know what you're going to say approximately, you know the points, the main point that you want to get across, the end that you want to see and achieve. You now need to practice a couple of areas. So the first area to practice is your opening line. This sounds a bit strange, but actually the hardest thing about this conversation is starting the conversation. Because you know so much about this, you know, you've been living this situation probably for quite a long time before you've decided that you need to have this conversation. Once you get started, it will flow and the examples will come out, which we'll prepare shortly. The hardest thing, as I say, is actually starting the conversation. So you want to practice your opening line, and this will depend on your logistics, which we've just spoken about. So whether you're in person or online, how the meeting's coming about, either way, you want to have a strong opening line that enables you to get straight to the point. Don't have any small talk at the beginning of this meeting. It just doesn't work. You don't want to ask them how was their weekend or how was the meeting with the client this morning or anything like that. You really do want to get straight to the point. You certainly don't want to ask them something like, how do you think you've been getting on over the last few weeks, or anything that allows them to go into a narrative about how they think they're doing, because you are setting yourself up for a even trickier conversation. Then you've either got to very rapidly disagree with what they've just said if they're naive and aren't really aware of the impact that their conduct or their behaviour is having, or the topic that you're about to bring up, or you're going to make them feel very defensive because that question is almost certainly a leading question and they know they're in this meeting because you've got something to talk to them about. So don't do that. Get straight to the point. Don't use a feedback sandwich. Don't have a bit of positive, then the negative thing, then positive. It just doesn't feel genuine. People see through it. Or they just focus on the positive thing and don't really listen to the negative thing. So we're going to get straight to the point here. I recommend starting something like, thank you for attending this meeting. I've got a few concerns that I'd like to discuss with you and hear your point of view. Is that okay? Or something like, I've got something I'd like to discuss with you today that I think will help us work together more effectively, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Is it okay if I go through a few points? The benefit of these type of opening lines is you're probably going to get a yes from the person. So they're giving you their permission to continue without probably even really thinking about that. But you're getting an early agreement from them, which is what you want. There are a number of iterations of these opening lines though, which are in the notes. So pick one which works for you, which feels most natural for you. Remember, once you get started with the meeting, it will just flow. Honestly, the opening line is the hardest one to get across because that's when you're feeling a bit nervous. But as soon as you get into the topic that you really want to talk about, the meeting will just run more naturally. So that's the first thing to practice, okay, your opening line. The second thing that we're going to practice is your key sentence. So this is the one thing that you want the individual to take away from the meeting. Quite often with these type of meetings, the individual will not remember most of what you said at all. And so, you may be really worrying about how am I going to say this or how am I going to say that, but actually a lot of it they will not remember. But you do want to make sure that they remember the important thing, not the thing that they liked the most about the meeting. So this key sentence is something you're going to repeat several times during the conversation to make sure that they recall that. And it's normally the main thing that you want them to change. So when you look back at what we prepared after the last video, what one thing do you want them to do differently? What would good really look like in terms of the change in their conduct or behaviour? This is the key sentence. Okay, so it might be something like, I really need you to check your work before you send it to me. Each month, I would like you to complete this report by the 5th working day. Or I just want you to pause and reflect about your response before you send that email to the client. So practicing this key sentence will really embed that in your mind. So say it several times to yourself as you're kind of rehearsing before you go into this meeting. and hopefully the person will remember that sentence because you would have said that several times. If you get to a tricky moment in the meeting, perhaps they're challenging what you're saying, you can also repeat the key sentence. So, if they're challenging, well, I don't remember the meeting to go like that, or I didn't say that, or you can say, I just need you to pause and think before you send an email, so that we don't have that kind of defensive or confrontational tone to it. Walk away from your desk, read it, come back, read it, reflect. I just need you to pause before you send that email. And it could just be a little bit of a reset of the meeting, as an anchor for you to kind of bring you back as to why we're having this meeting. The purpose of doing this is so that you retain a level of control. And this is what happens when you don't prepare for these meetings. Often the person can say something, they might say, a loved one's just suddenly got a really terrible illness, or, their dog's maybe about to pass away, or something which kind of makes you go, ooh, should I say this? And if you haven't prepared, you're very easily taken off to one side, to a tangent, and you won't say what you need to say in the meeting. If you've prepared, you can react with empathy to that situation, but you could just bring it back to, I just really want to have this conversation with you so that we can work more effectively going forward. And I really just need you to understand you need to check your work before you send it to me. So if you've prepared that, you will be able to bring the conversation back to that key sentence. Okay, you should also include the key sentence really clearly in your written summary of the meeting afterwards, which we'll go through in a second. So they're the two aspects of preparing. One, the opening sentence, the opening phrase that you're going to use that feels right for you, that gets you going, it gets you into the flow. And secondly, your key sentence, which is going to be the one thing you want this person to remember, and that you can use as an anchor to bring yourself back and keep the conversation on track.